Hi, in this video we're going to talk about adapters in Android Studio. So an adapter is a piece of software that you're going to have to encounter whenever you work with lists or any kind of a drop-down menu. So you can see on the left side there is an example of a spinner. It's the drop-down menu where you select from a predefined choices. And then the right side is the array list or the list idea, where you can have many different things and they just scroll on by. So either one of those is what you think of when you think of adapters and lists. So we're going to do some coding. We're going to create a class of some data source, such as persons or cars or some kind of object that we've been working with. And then the right side is the adapter view, which is the actual display of the GUI elements. So it's going to be a form or a list of items that you want to show on the application screen. And to make the bridge between those two is the adapter. And so that's where it gets kind of confusing and challenging to figure out. So we'll show you lots of examples to make sure that this works. So first of all, think of what adapters are in the real world, in the physical world. So if you're doing with a conversion from one type of electricity to another, you're going to have to purchase an electrical adapter. Or if you have different formats of cabling, you've got charging ports and USBs of different varieties. So there's adapters for different formats. Video signals and serial cables, they all have adapters. And so there's one for a Macintosh, it looks like. So those of you that have Apple phones and Apple computers know all about adapters. Also, thinking of adapters, sometimes people think of the mechanics adapter. So these socket wrenches are all in different sizes. Usually there's just two different sizes. So the little tiny wrenches have a small point where you can plug in your handle. And that handle doesn't always fit with the bigger wrenches that are heavy duty. And so you can have these adapters, as you can see on the left, that will just allow you to plug the handle into one and then attach it to smaller or larger wrench sockets. Now, electrical adapters for your computer are adapting the voltage. So the wall outlet is probably going 120 volts and your computer only needs 12 volts to charge. So that big block there is an adapter that's converting from one type of electricity to another. So let's talk about our two different programming classes again. So if we have on the left side a list of persons called an array list, and our person has a name, age, and a photo, the activity on the screen might have three different components for each list item. You might have a text view for the name, a text view for the age, and then you'd have another type of view called an image view, which will show a photo. And so we're going to have this class that's going to convert one and map the properties of one class to the location on the screen for the other. So what it looks like then in real life is that you have an array list likely. And the simplest one is just an array list of type string. And then on the right side, you're going to have this XML code. And in the middle is the adapter. And so we're going to take a look at two different lessons on how to build these adapters. Example one is a simple array adapter. It's one line long. And so most of you will like this one. It's just easy to work with and it's predefined. The limitation is you can only show one line of string on each element in your list. More than likely, you have classes with multiple properties, such as name, age, and photo. And how do you map those to a custom list? Well, what you have to build is a custom adapter. And so that'll be part two that we'll work at. So the first one will get you started with lists, and then the next one will get you more of an advanced level where you'll become an expert in showing lists of things on your Android Studio. Hi, in this video we're going to try to demonstrate a list view adapter, and so that you can see the demo on the screen shows the final product that we're going to make. So I have a simple list of names and I'm going to add some more people. So if I type in James and click the add button, you can see he appears here. Also, you notice this is sorted, so if I type in Kathy and add her, then we see that Kathy follows Carlisle and is before Dennis. And so this is the app that you're going to build in the next few minutes. So here we go. I'm in Android Studio version 3.14 and I'll start a new project. I'm going to call mine name list and choose next. And I'll use the regular empty activity and the other defaults and finish. So the first thing to do is build the interface, and then we will put in the list afterwards. So let's expand our tree so we can see what files we're working with. We're in main activity, and in resources we are in layout and activity main. So those are the two things we're working with. So I'm going to build here, first of all, the interface. So let's delete the hello world and add some new items. So I want to have a text, plain text entry form. So let's drag an entry text out here, and let's set his constraints. So I want him to be stuck to the roof and stuck to the left side. So those are the two constraints. Let's do a button, and let's put the button over here on the right. And I'm going to put the constraints so he is glued to the right as well as to the top. And now I want the text to go all the way to the button. So let's see, that's the constraint. Now the width for my text frame is going to be match constraint. And it's supposed to come all the way to the edge. Let's go see why it's not working. So let's check the constraints. First of all, the end is to the end of the parent, top is to the top of the parent. The constraint says start to the start of the parent, top. What's missing is the constraint to the right side. So if I have to type that in manually, I will. So we'll call it the end. And let's see, layout constraint end to the start of, and I want to be the start of the ID button. Okay, let's save that. Okay, so it is there, and okay, so I had to refresh it, and now it is full width. All right, so on the button, let's give it a name. Let's call it BTN add, and let's add him to the XML files. Let's go for this thing and change edit text to ET add name, we'll call it. So now I have two controls. The button needs to have some text on it, so let's change that to add. Now I want to have my list view, so let's go into the, let's see, where is it? Common is, we have recycle view. Now recycle view is the default and the approved and the preferred list view type of material. However, it is more complicated than a beginner should be able to work with. So I'm going to go to the legacy area and choose list view. So list view is not quite as efficient as far as the application performance, but it still does the same purpose. All right, so constraints here. Let's take this guy and attach him to the bottom of the text field. The left, we will do the constraint, which will match to the left. Same with the right. Let's check in our text area. So the constraint says end to the end of the parent, start to the start of the parent, top to the bottom, and then lastly there should be a constraint at the bottom. So let's go from here to the bottom, and let's see what that does. So the bottom is to the bottom of the parent. Perfect. All right, so that's the entire interface of what we're going to build. Now let's get into the code. So let's go into our main activity and add some items. First of all, we have to get the variable names. So button is btn add, and let's see, we have to do some importing. So alt enter, and then we have a text edit, or is it called text view? Edit text, that's what it is. It's an edit text item. Et, I think I called it add name. Let's check again. That is called add name. It is. Oh, it looks like list view needs a name. So let's call this thing list view list of names. Okay, let's go back into Java again, keep working. So we have list view, and his name is going to be called LV list of names. All right, so we've defined our three variables that we're going to interlink with our layout. So now in the onCreate method, we're going to say btn add is going to be equal to a find view by ID, and then we use r.id, and then this is btn add. Perfect. The other one is edit text. All right, so now I have all of my variables associated with objects on the layout. Just to make sure that I've got everything working, let's take a run at it. And here comes the first run. It looks like we're working. So I have a data entry form and a button, but nothing actually happens. So let's keep going. Now I want to add some data here. So let's create two variables, one a list view and the other an array. So I'm going to create a list of friends, and then it's going to be an array list. So type string, only one item for friends, just the friend's name. And so for the starting list, I'm going to create 4 new names. I'm going to just name them alphabetical, A, B, C, and D, so that way you can see the order when the list is printed. Okay, let's switch back into onCreate. So I want to be able to initiate the friends list when the program launches. So I'm going to say that friends is a new array list. So what I want to do is create a new list or a new array list. And I'm going to use the starting list as my beginning point. So arrays.asList will convert an array to an array list. All right, so now we need to create what's called the list adapter. So I'm creating this item called array adapter AD. It's going to be equal to a new array adapter. So I'm going to fill in 2 parameters that this array adapter needs. First of all, it needs the context. So this is the context of which part of the applications is running. And then the last parameter is friends. So that makes sense. We are taking the friends list and we are making it into an adapter for my array list. Now, the middle part is a little bit strange. We need to tell it what kind of adapter we're going to build. And in this example, there's been an adapter that's already defined and built for us. So we're just going to use this one. So to find it, you type in the word Android dot R dot layout dot, and then we have a whole bunch of predefined adapters. And so the simple list item 1 is the one we're going to use. So this is all predefined work that somebody else designed for us, and we will create our own custom adapter maybe in the next video, but for right now we're going to use the one that's been provided. Okay, so now back in the onCreate method, we're going to have list view, list of names, and we're going to do set adapter, and we can use the letters AD. So this will set the adapter to this item that we defined earlier. Okay, let's check this out, see if it actually works. So I'm going to run it again, and we should see a new item in the list. So it's ready to run, and oh, it flashed, and then the application crashed. So I did something wrong, and I think I see what it is. When I created the new list adapter up here, I referenced this variable called friends, and you can see that friends is just defined earlier and it's actually empty. So what I need to do is take this code and cut it out, and I need to do it after we have built friends. So this will make sense down here after we create friends. And then at the top, when we have array adapter, I'm just going to define it as AD. So we'll define it here, or declare it here, and then assign it inside the event after the starting list has been put into friends. Let's try that. Okay, this is looking better. I see I have a list of people, and I'm not being able to add them yet, but at least I've got a name, so I know that the list adapter is working. Okay, time for the button. So we want to add something to our list. To make that work, we're going to have to add a listener, a button listener. So button add, and we'll do set onClick listener, and we'll do a new onClick listener. So now inside of this new function, we need 3 events. First of all, we need to capture whatever was set in the edit text area called add name. So we'll assign that to the variable called new name. It's a string. Then the second is we're going to add this item to the friends list. So friends.add. And then lastly, we're going to tell the listener, or the list adapter, that we are notifying that we have changed the data of our friends list. So ad.notify data set changed is what will tell the list that we've updated it. So this should allow us to add some people to our list. Let's run it. So it looks like we're going. Let's try the word name and add it. So sure enough, it shows down here. Let's give a real name. So let's put in Kim for our first name and add. And it looks like it's working. So I'm going to change a couple things. I'm going to delete the word name out of the text here and instead put that inside the hint. So the hint tells the user what they expect, but it doesn't actually fill any data in. Let's deal with the sorting now. So there's a nice way to sort this list after I add the friend. We can do something called collections. There it is, collections dot sort. And then I'm going to sort the list called friends. So that should work now. I've sorted and we should see what the changes look like. And it looks like we're working now. So let's try another name. Let's add Jim. He's there, and now I'm going to add somebody that has the name Kathy and add that one, and it looks like we're going. So the list seems to be sorting. So the last thing I'd like to do for this demo is to add a click listener to each item in the list. So when you click on somebody's name, we have an event. Let's go down to the end of the area on create. So before the end of this section is this right here. Okay, so we're going to make a new event. I'm going to say we're going to do the list view, list of names dot, and set on, and what do we have? Set on item click listener. So that means when one item is clicked, this method will be called. We need a new. Let's see what we have for on click. Do we have anything? There it is, adapter view on item click listener. Let's put that in. And fortunately, it types some code in. You can see the items that are going to be passed. So first of all, the position of the item, and then the ID of the item. So the position is the key item here that we're going to use. Just to see that it worked, I'm going to make a toast. So type in the word toast and choose create new toast. Inside of the text, we're going to say the position equals, and type in the word position, and then we'll add the actual name of the person. So we'll say space name equals, and then we'll do another. So we'll say the friends list dot get, and then I'm looking for a number, which is also position. So this should give us an event that we can click on the list. So let's run the program again and see if it works. All right, so we've got ourselves the list. We could add a name, or if I click on Beatrice, what happens? It says position 1 and her name, and then Anselm. He is at position 0 and it shows his name. So the click listener for each event is now working. So you can imagine if we were to click this, instead of showing a toast, we could bring up another screen, maybe to edit the user's name. Or we could have another list of options, such as making a phone call or doing some other event associated with the user. And so the click listener is an important part of managing a list as well. Okay, so congratulations, you've created your first app that has a list in it and an adapter, and this should probably help you a long ways on some of your applications that include lists in them. So, way to go. Hello, welcome to another tutorial for Android applications. In this example, I'm going to show you how to use a list view demo, and we're going to have a more complicated list. You can see the list of people that I've created here, and I'll show you that I can add a new one. So let's create a new person. So I'm going to have a name, an age, and then a picture number. Let's choose add new friend, and you can see that my new friend shows up in here. Now the other two buttons I have on here are sorting buttons, so I can sort alphabetically and I can sort by age. And then so that's what the application is going to look like when we're ready. Now I'm going to give you a quick overview of some of the files that are in here, and then we'll get started on coding and creating. So first of all, let's look in the Java folder. I have the standard main activity here. I have a new class called myFriends, which is going to manage a list of friends. Then I have a person object. So the person object is just the item that has three properties, such as name, age, and icon number. We have a person adapter. This is where the heart and soul of our tutorial will be. This is the new material. And then further in, we have a section called drawable. And you can see that I've created a bunch of icons. So this is icon number 1, this is 2. And so these are just some clip art icons that represent people. And so we'll have to find some of those. So that's where we're going. And when you're finished, you'll have an ability to create a custom list adapter. So you can display a picture and an arrangement of each item in its own little cluster. And so that's what a custom list adapter will do for you. So let's get started in the next video. Hey, welcome back to another video for our list view demo. I'm showing you the finished product again of the app that we're building, and you can see that we have a custom adapter so that each person in the list has a little icon, a name, and age. And so in this video we're going to create two layout files. One is this special layout so that we have the picture and name and age together. So the item person is what we're going to create in this video here. So you can see that I'm going to create some objects here that are laid out as one line in the list. So this is what we're going to end up making. And then the other is the add new friend form. So this is a data entry form. You can see from here that we have a picture at the top and then 3 entry forms here. So each of those exists in its own layout file. So we'll be making that now. So now I want to create the one line person layout. So let's go into layouts, choose new, and layout resource file. So we're going to give this a name. So I'm going to name it person_1line. And let's just leave it alone with the constraint layout as our setting. And let's choose OK. So now imagine that we're just working with one line of data. So we want to have a photo, and then we want to have 2 text fields. So let's go to the image view. We'll start there. We'll drag him out. So now this resources is coming up. It wants to know what kind of picture you're going to put on there. So I'm just going to put in a placeholder. So I'll pick one of these icons that we've imported, and you can see the approximate size of what it's going to be. Once again, the constraints. Let's change the constraints so it drags to the top of the edge of the screen and to the left. And so there's our first layout. So I'm going to put in a text view next, and this is going to be the person's name. So let's drag to the left of this one and drag it to the top. And let's give it a text holder. So let's call this thing, let's just put in the person's name. Let's call him Adam. And so you can see that there's a name there. Now let's put in an age. So let's try text view again and drag it out. Text view is going to be stuck to the left of the picture. And I want this to be to the bottom of Adam. Let's just put in the word age and colon. Now we also want to be able to actually print the person's number in there. So let's put in another text view and we'll drag him out. So he's going to be stuck to the left, and he'll be stuck to the bottom of Adam as well. So it's starting to get complicated in here. Lots of arrows. So every once in a while you should go back and check to see if you're actually getting what you want here. So this text view is to the end of text view 2. It's to the bottom of the first text view. Seems to be working. Now these are going to get confusing unless we start naming these. So let's first of all change the image view. So I'm going to call it image view, and I'll call it icon. For Adam, I'm going to change that to text view to be name. How about the age here? So this is the age label. So we'll call it text view age label. And then the next one's actually going to hold the value. So we'll call it text view age value. And then down here in the text, let's put in a number. So he's 25 years old. So that's what one line is going to look like in our list. Now I'm thinking ahead, and I want to separate these lines. So let's go see if there's a separator somewhere. So layouts, horizontal, space. Here, I found it. It's in widgets. Horizontal divider. So let's drag a horizontal divider out, and let's put him in place. So this is going to be to the bottom of the photo. The left will be the left of the width of the whole activity. So now for the picture, I want to change this to a constant size. So I've got the height here. Let's change it to 100 dp. What does that look like? That's about the same, and I think that should work pretty well. Maybe 66. Let's do a little smaller. And the width, let's do also as 66. So let's stop here for this video. In the next video, we're going to create the data entry form, and then we'll be able to start coding our app with Java after that. Hi, in this video we're going to create the layout that you see on the screen here. So I'm taking a piece of video from when we're done. When we're finished, we will have a username, age, and picture number entry data point, and then you can see the text edit texts are named like they are in the standard form, ET underscore. And so the top picture is just a placeholder, it's an icon. Okay, so it's time to get started with the person entry form. So you can see on the screen I have the last video's work where we have a single line entry. So we're going back into the layout and we're going to create a new layout resource file. So I'm going to name this as add person form. Now you notice here that the type of layout is set to constraint. Normally I would change this to linear layout and then move on, but many times I forget. So I'm going to show you if you forget to change this, you can modify it at a later time. So let's leave it alone for right now. Click OK. So here's my new layout. You can see it's set to constraint layout. So I'm going to use a different type of layout here. So I'm going to convert this now into what's called a linear layout and click apply. And so now it says linear layout horizontal. Let's see what a horizontal linear layout does. So I'm going to delete these buttons in a moment, but let's see what happens. So if I drag a button onto the screen, you can see it automatically occupies the entire width of the screen. I'll put another one below it, but actually it doesn't go below it. This is called a linear layout, so everything is lined up from left to right. If I keep putting more out, it will keep lining them up on one line. So we're looking for a linear layout that is vertical. So I'm going to select all these and delete them, and then try again. So let's go back to linear layout horizontal and convert it. So right click, choose linear layout, convert orientation to vertical. Okay, so now let's try it again. This time I'm going to actually build the form. So we'll drop in an image view to start with, and we'll pick a picture for it. So one of my icons, and OK. Once again, it fills up the entire width of the screen. This time though, we're going to put in a text item and plain text underneath it. And you can see that the vertical orientation will now start to stack the items on top of each other. So you can see that a linear layout is good for items that are like stacked top to bottom. So we are going to have 3 entry points here for data. So let's put out 3 edit texts. Now they all say name on them right now for text fillers, so we'll have to change that. First of all, let's give these different IDs. So let's start with the image view. So I'm going to rename the ID as IV underscore person icon. And then for the edit text, the first one, let's change him to ET underscore, and let's just call it name. The next one is the ET underscore age. And then finally I'm going to call the last one ET underscore picture number. Let's change the text inside of here so it doesn't say name for everything. So I find the property called text and change it from name to empty. Now I'm looking for the hint. So down below hint, we can put in there as a value for name. So hint doesn't get in the way of the user when he's doing input. So for the other two, I'm going to delete their text, change the first one to say the hint is age. And then for picture number, I'm going to also delete the text and change the picture number hint so that people know that they're supposed to put a number. Okay, so that pretty much creates the text entry form that we need. And so in the next video, we'll start working on some Java code. Hi, we're continuing on with our people list program where we're demonstrating a custom list adapter. So the next thing I have to do is start doing Java programming. We've created the layouts, and so now we're going to create a class called person. So let's go look in the Java code here and see that we have main activity. So right now this is the only Java code that exists in the application. So I want to create a person class. So I'll right click, choose new Java class. And let's call him person. So my person class will have 3 properties. We're going to have a string named name, and then we'll have an integer for age, and then another integer for his picture number. The The first thing we'll have to do is create a constructor. And so I will select all three properties to be included in my constructor. So when we create a new person, we'll have name, age, and picture number as parameters. The next step is to create the actual getters and setters for these three properties. So we'll right-click again, choose Generate, pick Getters and Setters, select all of the properties, and click OK. So I know that I'm going to be sorting these lists later, so I'll put in a comment that says Compare To for sorting. So we'll implement Compare To, but we won't use it right away. So we'll just leave it for that. Okay, so that pretty much wraps it up for what we're going to do with person. Now I'm going to create another class that will manage a list of person. And so let's create a new Java class. Let's call it My Friends. So I'll create a new property called My Friends List, and it is a list of type person. So this will be a class that will manage the one list. So the first thing I'll do is create a constructor. And so the constructor will allow us to create a new list. So now let's create a second constructor. This is what you would call the default constructor with no parameters. And so when I call this constructor, I want to automatically fill the list with 3 new people. So let's create a basic array, and let's just put in 3 names, one that starts with A, another one with B, and then C. So Anselm, Beatrice, and Carlisle. So we're going to need some random numbers for our people's ages. So let's go with a random number generator. RNG is usually what I call it, and it is a new random object. So next we need to create a for loop so that we can generate a new person with each of these names. So integer from I to the length of the list. So let's create a new person object. We'll call it P. And so it requires 3 parameters. First of all, it needs a string. So I'll use the item from starting names. So starting names sub I. Then for the age, let's pick a random number. So I'll do random number generator.nextInt, and I'm going to pick a range of 50 and then add 15. So this means everybody's going to be in the range of age of 15 to 65. Then lastly, let's pick a random integer for his icon number. Alright, so now we need to set the property for My Friends List. So back up a few lines, let's go and insert a command that will take a new friends list. It'll make it a blank array list. And then inside the for loop, let's take the new person that we just created and add him. And so when we're done with our default constructor, we will have 3 people, Anselm, Beatrice, and Carlisle, and they will have random values for their age and icon number. Lastly, we should use the getters and setters for our list, so we can update this if we need to. Alright, so that pretty much wraps up the 2 classes that we're going to be using for the duration of our application. So first of all, the basic person has 3 properties, and then we'll have a list object that will take care of a list of friends. And so we'll move on to the next video now and start to create a custom array adapter. Hey, welcome back to another video for our People List app. In this video, we're going to create the array adapter, or the custom adapter that will be able to make this list appear. So we've previously done a My Friends class, which is going to be very important in this video. My Friends class has a property called My Friends List. So the goal is to take this list of friends and put it into this layout here so that each one of these rows becomes a new friend. So that's our goal. So we're going to have to create an adapter for this list. We're going to call it Person Adapter. So let's go into our Java folder, create a new Java class, and we'll call it Person Adapter. So an adapter has some very specific things that it must implement. So let's choose the keyword extends, and we're looking for the other keyword called base adapter. Alright, so base adapter has some properties in this interface that we must implement. So I'm trying to get the little light bulb to appear above my code. There it comes. Okay, so I find the light bulb and then I choose Implement Methods. It says you're going to implement 4 of these methods, so I'll click OK. Alright, so now these are going to be our project here for the rest of the video. We're going to need 2 properties and a constructor for the base adapter. So we're going to need a variable called mActivity, which stands for my activity, and that will be used as part of our context settings. The next property we'll need is a list. So we're going to have a my friends object imported as well. Then we're going to create a constructor. So let's do a generate command and choose the two properties that we've just invented. Okay, so once we have a list here of my friends, then the rest of these functions will turn out a little bit more sensible. So let's say if we were going to use the function called getCount, that means how many items are in the list. So let's type in myfriends.get myfriendslist and there's the size command. So getCount just tells me how many people are in the list. The next method that I have to implement is called getItem. So we're going to get the item from the list at position. Now you should note here that when we send back the return statement, it is returning an actual person. And the type of return is set to object. So this will cause some trouble down the road. We're going to see an error and we're going to have to change this to person. But for right now, let's leave it here so that way we'll see the error come up. The next item is called getItemID, and I don't believe we need that for our current use. The last item is the most complicated of them. What this is going to do is send back a view or send back a collection of properties that we can use in this layout here called person1list. So our goal is to put a value to every one of these items in the list. So stick with me, we're going to take quite a bit of code here. First of all, I'm going to create a new view object. I'm going to name it OnePersonLine. So OnePersonLine is the view object that corresponds to this layout. And then at the bottom of the list, when we're all done, we are going to return OnePersonLine. So we're going to use a new object called a layout inflator. And a layout inflator is designed to take a layout like this, or any of these, and then it will turn it into its associated classes or properties. So this is a new concept likely, so let's take a look at the developer tutorials or the references at android.com. So what is a layout inflator? It's a class that instantiates a layout XML file, or any one of our forms that we've created, into its corresponding view objects. So that's what an adapter is supposed to do. It's to take the XML file and line it up with a class of the view objects. So for this layout inflator, we're going to take the activity, mActivity, and we're going to get system service here. And then we're going to take the variable called context, and we want the first option called layout inflator service. So what this will do is create a inflator that will be associated with the activity. Now we've got a casting problem here. It says you are required to be assigning this variable as a layout inflator, and I only got an object. So casting is what we need. So let's go to the front here and type in layout inflator as the type of object, and the error goes away. So we're going to use the inflator and .inflate. Then we're going to specify which layout we want to inflate. So in this case it's r.layout, and as you recall, the name of the file is person1line. Now we've got some other errors. So the inflate command requires two more different parameters that we haven't supplied yet. So these guys are going to be the parent. So what is parent? Well, parent came through to us as one of the parameters called viewGroup. So whatever the parent of this thing is, we're going to pass it along. The next item is called a Boolean, true or false. And as you can see, I've chosen false for the parameter called attached to root. So this is part of the documentation, just you're going to use it the way I'm printing here anyway, so let's just follow along. So now this OnePersonLine is a reference to this layout right here. So we're going to invent a new variable called tvName, and this is going to be taken as the text view name that's in the layout. So we're going to use find view by ID again, just like we've done in previous examples. So the third item that we're going to assign is the image view for the icon. So when we're done, we'll have two references to text views and one reference to an image view. So now the only job left is to assign text values to these two text views and then assign an image to the image view and return it. So we're almost to the end. So the three statements that we're eventually going to execute are set text, and then TV age gets a set text, and then TV icon gets a set image resource. So now we have to put some actual values in there. So where are we going to get those? So the statement I'm looking for is to get a person object. So we'll define person P equals this class dot get item at position. So this should work. Except we have a problem here. It says we have a casting issue. It says it's requiring a person and it found an object. So there are two ways to fix this. One is, since we know that this is going to be a person, we could say, please cast this to person. And the error goes away. That's one way to do it. Another way is to come up to the get item, and instead of just returning an object, we tell it, we guarantee that it's going to be a person coming back. And so now the function is working properly down here on line 50. Okay, so we're halfway there. So now we can do set text. If we want to get the name of this person, we do p dot get name. So far so good. How about the next one? Let's do p dot get age. That looks good too. But you should probably realize that this is an integer, and when we set an integer as a string area, the program will crash. So we have to make sure that this gets converted to a string. So let's type in integer.toString and then enclose the age in parentheses. Okay, that's looking pretty good. What about these image resources? So what we need to do then is assign one of our icons to this view property. So as you recall, in the drawable folder, we have all these icons that were imported at a previous step. So if I open one of them, you can see it's a picture. So first of all, we have to get a hold of those references. So we'll create an array called icon resource numbers, and we'll make it a fixed length array. We're going to specify every element in the array, so we'll open it with a curly bracket. Type r.drawable, and you get all the resources available to pick from. So we'll choose the first one called icon0101. Now we could type another one. We could say r.drawable icon01_02. And this will get slow and tedious, so let's do copy and paste. Alright, I've reached the end, and you notice I'm at item 30. If I try to put in 31 and 32, you can see I get red letters here. There is no resource named 31 and 32, so my icons only go up to item 30. So let's delete the last two plus the comma. So we've got ourselves now an array with all of the resource ID numbers in it. So these are not 1 through 30. These are some long number that is the resource ID number, but they're stored in an array so we can quickly get to them. So the last item we want is TV icon, set image resource, and now we want to get the icon resource numbers, and the icon that we're looking for is at position. So then this should return the one person line view. So all of this work here is to return a view object. And this should set up our array. Okay, I have an error in my list. Let's see where it wants to fix something. Oh, it looks like I missed a semicolon. Okay, so that pretty much finishes up the adapter. So the adapter uses these four methods that are going to require a get count, get item, this one here is optional, and then finally we get view. So getView is where all the work goes of translating values to the actual properties of our text views and icon views. So now let's go make this work. Let's go into main activity. So we haven't defined anything in main activity yet, so we have to define our buttons and then assign them ID numbers. So the properties that are on my layout are the buttons. So let's have a button add, a button sort ABC, and a button sort age. We'll also have a reference to the list view. So I'm going to call it list view underscore friends list. All right, the next step is to actually assign these buttons a value. So button._add equals find view by ID. Let's choose r.id button add. And then the other two buttons go very similar. For button sort ABC, we'll find it. And then for button sort age, we'll also find its view. So the first thing we have to do is create an instance of the person adapter object. So we'll define the variable up here on line 15. Also, we would like to have an example of our My Friends list. All right, so we'll create a My Friends instance, and we'll assign it a new blank My Friends. Actually, it's the default My Friends. Then the adapter is going to be equal to a new person adapter. And as you can see, I'm hovering here and showing that it needs two items. We need an activity and we need a list. Unfortunately, we have both of those. So the main activity.this will satisfy which activity is calling the adapter. Then the My Friends array list will be passed in as well. Finally, we'll take the list view of friends list and we'll set its adapter. So all of this work has been coming up to this one line. Set the adapter for list view of friends. Of course, it doesn't work. It just crashed. Let's go see if we can find out why. So let's go look in the logcat. So I'm selecting the errors list to see if there's anything there that I can figure out what's going wrong. It says you have a problem here. Null pointer exception. That means some variable never got assigned anything. Attempt to invoke a method called setAdapter on listAdapter on a null referenced object. Okay, so that means that here on LV friends list, it doesn't actually have a value. So I made the mistake of thinking that just because I defined the variable, it's been assigned a value. So let's slip in the line 27 here and assign it a value. Friends list equals find view by ID. Okay, then we want LV list of names. Okay, let's try that again. Okay, the program's up and running, and you can see that I have 3 names in my list. So the adapter must have worked. If you get more errors, you've got troubleshooting to do, but this will be the end of the video from here. We'll work on some of the other buttons in the future. Hi, in this video we're going to create a new data entry form so that we can add a new person. So let's go through some processes together. I'm going to go to the main project under the Java menu and do a right click. New, and instead of choosing a regular class, let's go all the way down to the word activity. And I want to choose empty activity. Let's give it a name. Let's call it new person form. So you notice it's going to create 2 things for us. It's going to generate the activity underscore new person form. This is an XML file. And then this one up here, new person form, I better put it right, will be a Java file. And go ahead and finish. All right, so we got the new person file open. And now we're going to go ahead and check a few things. What happened? I'd like to go first of all look in the manifest file. So we'll look in here and you can see that there is a new activity somewhere right here. It's called a new person form, and so the original was called main activity. So that should be a notice that automatically created it for you. You can see new person form, Java is here, and new person form XML is down in the layout section. Let's go work on the layouts. So what kind of a form do we want this to look like? So in this form here, we're going to reuse a component that we've already created in a previous step. So I believe there was something called add new friend. So add new friend is this partial form here. It's missing the buttons. And so the intent here is that we can reuse this portion of the layout in other layouts. And so right now this would be a great time to use it. So I'm in the activity new person form. To include something, you have to go into the text area. And inside of the XML, we're going to type in bracket include. So I'll press enter. Space. And I want to include a layout. So I'll select layout. And now I have a choice of what kind of layouts that I want to add. So the one that I'm adding is the add new friend choice. And let's see, we'll do a close bracket, and there it is. You can see the preview shows the new form. Okay, so you can see that the include now shows that we have the one form inside of another. So let's set the width and height on this fella here. So the width here, let's choose wrap content. And for the height, let's also choose wrap content. So you can see that it does wrap the content. It does not quite match what I want. I'd like it to be the full width of the screen. So instead of layout width being that, let's try match parent. And there we go. So we've got match parent, and that makes the full width of the screen. Now it's time to put in the left margin and the right constraint as well. Let's see if I can do that. And let's take the top constraint and put it to the top. Okay, so now we've got ourselves the layout stuck to the top. It's time for two buttons. Let's put in a button here and another one here. And let's attach these to the bottom of our include. And let's center these. So let's go to the left side and to the right side. Let's make a constraint so they attach to each other. The second one never seems to attach to the first, so I got to go into the text and edit that. So which I'm doing this first button here, and his constraint. So I'm looking for the constraint to match the end of it to the start of the previous button, or the other button. And so that one was called button 4, I believe. There they go. So now if I check out the constraints, you can see that they are constrained to each other. All right, let's give these some IDs and some names. So for the first one, let's call this thing button cancel. And let's give the text the word cancel. For the other, let's change this to button, maybe I think it's OK, I think will work. If not, we can change it later. And this one here will also change to OK. All right, so now we've got ourselves a new activity, and it's ready to go for the next video. Hey, welcome to another video for our People List application. In this video, we're going to take this add button and activate it. So right now we just have 3 people in our list. We want to add more. So when we create a button listener for add, we want to be able to open up the other activity, which is called add person form, is it? Or activity new person form. I think that's the one. So a new person form is this one here. It will add a new entry form with an OK button and a cancel. And then we're going to add it to the list. So let's get started. We're going into the main activity.java to do our first coding. So in here we can already see we have created a reference to the button underscore add. If you don't have one, we need to put that in there. So we are going to pull out the button add reference in the layout. Before we end the onCreate method, we need to put in the onListener. So let's see, btn add, and we're going to set onClickListener. So this will allow us to listen to the add button. The new onClickListener is the next function. and that should do some autocomplete text. Now we want to be able to open up another activity. So we already have the activity new person form created here, and it's got an include, which is our data entry form. It's got a button cancel and a button OK. So I'm just checking to make sure that everything is there. If you don't have this yet, then we have to create a new form. So back to activity main. So how do I get that form to open? It's called an intent. So intent is a class, and I'm just going to name it I, and we want a new intent. So how do we get it to work? So inside of these parameters here, we're going to have to add some information on how this is going to run. The first item that it needs is to know the context of where this is coming from. The second parameter is going to ask where it's going. So the intent comes from the current activity. So the key understanding here is, where did this function click listener get called from? Well, the answer is here in the letter V. So V stands for view, which means the button that will click to this. So the only button that can click this thing is the button add. So V dot get context is what I need to tell the app where this is in relation to the other parts of the application. So that's where it comes from. Now where's it going? So where it's going is to the next piece of Java code. So let's take a look in Java here. And we have a new person form, Java. Let's go to that. So new person form, and we have to tell it that that's actually a class. So that is the intent that will open up an explicit call to another activity. There are two types of intents. There's an explicit type, which I've just shown you, and there's an implicit type. So the implicit type would ask the operating system to pick an activity for us. For instance, if implicitly I said, send a phone call, it would go for any dialer application on your phone. Or open a map. It would likely open Google Maps, but there could be a second or third apps program. And then we could ask for things like send a text, and here's a string of text. So those would all be implicit, to let the operating system or let the user choose one of how it's going to act. In this case, we are using explicit calls, so we are saying only the new person form can respond to this intent. So the next line is, we're looking for a command called start activity. And start activity requires a parameter of intent. Well, fortunately, the letter I is our intent. So let's save that. I'm going to run the program and see if it'll call the new activity. Okay, so the activity is open. Now if I click the Add button, we should get a new list. So here is the next screen. Now it would be nice if I could do cancel and OK here, but that's for another activity or another video. So that is the way to create an intent and start a new activity. So in the next video, we'll take a data entry form, capture the data, click OK, and send the data back to our original program. Hey, welcome to another video here in the People List app. In the last video, we created this second screen where we can have an intent call another activity. Now we want to be able to capture data from this form and click OK and come back into our original activity. So let's do some coding here. So the main activity, just to recall and recap what we did before, the main activity has an intent inside of the onClick listener. So intent I tells us to get the context of our current location and open a new activity. So we'll do the same kind of programming in the second new person form. So let's go to here, new person form. Now we have to create references to the buttons and set an intent on them. So the first thing we have to do is tell the program what buttons and edit text there are to listen for. So we have a button OK, we have a button cancel. In edit text, we have an edit text name, we have an edit text age, and an edit text for picture number. So I'm getting all of these directly from the layout. So these two buttons here, cancel and OK, are obviously listed in the component tree. However, the include came from a component that was nested into here. So These three are from the partial form, you might call it. So the add person form has these guys here. We're ignoring the IV picture icon. It's just a placeholder. It doesn't actually affect the data entry. Okay, back into our new person form Java code. So we have an OK button. We're going to focus on him first. Now let's make a actual reference to that and then make a listener. Alright, so here's the code. I'm going to first of all find view by ID in the layout and assign that ID number to this variable button OK. Then in button OK we can set an onClick listener, and a new onClick listener goes with that. So now we have code that will respond to a click. So inside of the onClick function we need to have a new intent. So the intent is going to try to call back the original main activity window. So mainActivity.class is where we're going. The second step in the intent process is to do start activity, and we will send it the intent that we created on the previous line, letter I. So it looks to me like we got the first window open. Let's click the add button. So the second activity is open now, and this OK button should now be active. We click him and we are back to the original. So we have two navigation buttons now that can get us between the two activities. Now I can't actually pass any data yet. It's just a button that does navigation. So in the next step here, let's capture the values from these edit text areas and send them back as a message to the main activity. So if I'm going to capture these values for the edit text, I need to define these variables. So the first step is to capture the actual ID numbers of these elements on the layout. So edit text age, edit text name, and edit text picture number are all found by find view by ID number. So let's set up the plan for what we're going to program next. First of all, I want to get the strings from the edit text view objects. So that means name, age, and picture number. Then the second is I'm going to put these strings into a special message for the activity, the main activity. So there's a communication between activities. And then third, let's just start the main activity again with the code that we just wrote a few minutes ago. So I'm going to define three new variables, one called new name, one called new age, and one called new picture number. These three strings will be captured from the edit text properties called getText. And getText needs to be converted to a string. So we have three new properties that we've just captured from the data entry form. So the next goal is to put these strings into a message for main activity. We have to do that after we created the intent. So an intent has i.putExtra as a method that we can use. So you can put a numbered pair together or pairs of strings together. So we're using strings. I'm going to say the string called name is new name. The label called age is for new age. The label called for picture number is new picture number. So this will put in a special piece of message that will allow one activity to communicate with another. Alright, so those put extras will send a message to the main activity. Now how does the main activity receive these messages? So now we're going to have to go back and add some more code. So the main activity is going to receive the code inside of the onCreate method. So I'm going to insert some new items here probably before the onClick listener. Alright, so here's the outline of what we're going to have to do to make this work. So we're going to listen for incoming messages. So we're going to just check to see if there are any intents sent to our application. If there are, then we're going to capture incoming data. So all of the put items will be received here. And then the last two steps are to create a new person object, add him to the list, and update the adapter so that the list will display the changes. So the first thing we'll do here is in the area called Listen for Incoming Changes. So the class that we're looking for here is called a bundle. I'm going to name it as Incoming Messages. So I'm going to assign it to something called a getIntent dot getExtras. So how do we tell if it actually worked or not? So it's an if. And we're going to say if incoming messages does not equal to null. So the first time we launch the application, there will be no incoming extras. There'll be nothing sent to main activity. However, if the data entry form calls the main activity, then this will actually have some data in it. So if we forget to put this if message in here, we'll have an application crash. So the first thing we'll do is we'll capture the name. So string of name is equal to incoming messages dot get string and the key. It looks like I don't know how to type. That's supposed to say incoming messages, right? Yeah. Okay, so now we're also going to capture the int of an age. So let's go to incoming messages, get string, and the next one is called age. And you can see that we have an error. It says you're trying to take a string and assign it to an integer. Not good, won't work. However, assuming that the user typed in an actual integer, we can type in integer.parseInt. And that will take a string and interpret it as an integer. So obviously, if the user types in letters instead of numbers, this application will crash at this line. So no data checking so far, but anyway, we're going to trust the user, which is always a bad idea, right? Never trust the user. So we'll do the same thing for integer on the picture number. So if we've got all these three items interpreted correctly, we should be able to build a person. So let's move down the page here, and let's move this bracket down to the bottom. So what else did I put in my comments here? Capture the incoming data. Well, actually we did that. So let's cut and paste. So we have the actual title in front of where we put the code. Okay, create a new person object. That's the next job. So person P equals a new person. And we need 3 inputs. So we have a name, age, and picture number. Well, that was easy. Now the next is to add the person to the list. So what list are we talking about? That was my friends dot get my friends list dot add person P. So where did my friends come from? You might have to recall from a previous video, we defined a list of friends here. So my friends is an actual variable that's in the main activity. So we've added an item called P. Now we need to update the adapter, it says. So the adapter only listens to changes when you tell it something changed. So adapter dot, and there is a section called notify. Notify data set changed. And so that is supposed to update the adapter so the list view changes as well. Well, let's see if this works. Let's run the program and try to enter a new person. So here it goes. I'm going to add a new guy to the list. And let's see. Today Karen is coming to join our team. Karen is age 43, and we're going to use picture number 21. And Karen shows up on the list. Hooray! Okay, let's see if it works again. I'm going to put in Aaron. He should be first in the list, right? He's 42, and he is using picture 2. Aaron shows up at the bottom of the list. So that's the next job. We got to have these items up here at the top, active, sorting. But this is a big accomplishment. We got data transferred to our form, and it's updating on the list, and it doesn't crash. So congratulations if you got this far. That'll be enough for this video. In the next, we will do sorting. Hey, welcome to another video here in the People List app. So I just discovered a serious problem. If I try to add somebody, the previous list disappeared. So I'm going to add Kim. She's 44 and a picture 2. So it looks pretty nice. Kim's here. But watch what happens when I try to add somebody else. Kim will disappear. So if I try to add somebody called Lori, and she is age 9 and 7, we'll look again. Where did Kim go? What's going on? How come I lost Kim? I still have my original 3. Well, the issue is something with the application lifecycle in Android. Every time that you open up a new activity, the old one is really destroyed, and it has to be recreated when the user comes back. So when we see the command called onCreate, that is literally telling the computer to create your activity from scratch again. Look at line 31. Line 31 says, whenever we create a new activity, whether it's been hidden and re-shown or whether it's run for the first time, this always runs, my friends equals new my friends. And then after we create the new list of those 3 people by default, then it starts creating the 4th one from the incoming message from the other entry form. And so we really don't get any further than 4 people. So let's come up with a solution here to fix this. Now there are a number of ways that you can persist data in an activity. And so apparently here's somebody that's smarter than I am that has given me a nice solution. So I'm in Stack Overflow of the Android global variable problem. So it says, how can I create global variables that keep remaining values around the life cycle of the application regardless of which activity is running? So the life cycle of the application isn't something we've covered yet in our tutorials in class. So it's worth searching for that to see the background. Essentially, lifecycle application means when we open up a new activity, like a data entry form, the old activity that called it is destroyed. It goes out of existence, and then when it comes back into activity, it's recreated. So that's what they mean by the life cycle of the application. So how to keep an application list of names around? Here's a really good answer. It says here you can create a new class called myApplication, and it extends the application object. This thing becomes a global class that stays around. It doesn't disappear like the others. So let's follow this example. You can see he says in our case here we're going to have one persisted sum variable, and we'll create getters and setters on it. Then we have to add something into my manifest to make this actually work. So it's not too complicated. Let's see how it goes. So let's switch back into here. I'm in my main app, and now I'm going to create this new class. So he suggests using myApplication for the name. And let's click, let's see, superclass is called application. So we will extend that and click OK. There you go. So here's our first line. It says, my application extends the application. So now we can put in regular properties like we normally do. So we have a private. In this case, it's my friends. Now let's create some constructors, or not constructors, but getters and setters. So we'll generate the getter and setter. Let's return back to the answer here. It says also in your manifest, you need to tell the computer that you have a class called myApplication. So let's go back into my manifest. So the manifest, remember, are found up here in the first folder under app. So inside of application, we're going to put in a new line. It's called name. So I type in name and select the first item. And it says, hey, do you want to use my application for a name? I sure do. So let's save that. So now, in my activity, or my main activity, I'm not going to create a new list of friends. I'm going to get something from another place. So let's go down and choose his activity get and set. How do you get to this thing? So let's do about getting. I'm going to copy this example and modify it. So copy and bring it back into here. So let's see. I'll take that part. My application dot this application and get some variable. Let's see if we have a different getter. We have a get my friends. There they are. And so now I am pulling the actual data source from this application class. All right, so everything else hopefully works fine. Let's go ahead and run this again. And now we have a solution for our global variables. Oh, it didn't work. It crashed. So what did I miss here? So it says that we have a problem on here. It says we have a null reference object on getFriendsList. So even though I have this global variable, I still wasn't very smart. When I create my friends list, I left them as null. So we're going to have this as a new friends list, or new my friends. There we go. Just for my own organization, I prefer to have the properties of a class listed first. So let's create this with an initialization and run it again. Okay, well, at least the application didn't crash this time. Let's see what happens when I add somebody. So we're going to add Aaron and see what happens to Aaron. Aaron is added to the lists. Now we're going to add Bob. Bob is also added to the list, and Aaron and Bob are both here. Yay! So it looks like our persistency is working now. Hey, welcome to another video here in the People List app. So I just discovered a serious problem. If I try to add somebody, the previous list disappeared. So I'm going to add Kim. She's 44 and I picture 2. So it looks pretty nice. Kim's here. But watch what happens when I try to add somebody else. Kim will disappear. So if I try to add somebody called Lori, and she is age 9 and 7, we'll look again. Where did Kim go? What's going on? How come I lost Kim? I still have my original 3. Well, the issue is something with the application life cycle in Android. Every time that you open up a new activity, the old one is really destroyed, and it has to be recreated when the user comes back. So when we see the command called onCreate, that is literally telling the computer to create your activity from scratch again. Look at line 31. Line 31 says, whenever we create a new activity, whether it's been hidden and re-shown or whether it's run for the first time, this always runs, my friends equals new my friends. And then after we create the new list of those 3 people by default, then it starts creating the 4th one from the incoming message from the other entry form. And so we really don't get any further than 4 people. So let's come up with a solution here to fix this. Now there are a number of ways that you can persist data in an activity. And so apparently here's somebody that's smarter than I am that has given me a nice solution. So I'm in Stack Overflow of the Android global variable problem. So it says, how can I create global variables that keep remaining values around the life cycle of the application regardless of which activity is running? So the life cycle of the application isn't something we've covered yet in our tutorials in class. So it's worth searching for that to see the background. Essentially, lifecycle application means when we open up a new activity, like a data entry form, the old activity that called it is destroyed. It goes out of existence, and then when it comes back into activity, it's recreated. So that's what they mean by the life cycle of the application. So how to keep an application list of names around? Here's a really good answer. It says here you can create a new class called myApplication, and it extends the application object. This thing becomes a global class that stays around. It doesn't disappear like the others. So let's follow this example. You can see he says in our case here we're going to have one persisted sum variable, and we'll create getters and setters on it. Then we have to add something into my manifest to make this actually work. So it's not too complicated. Let's see how it goes. So let's switch back into here. I'm in my main app, and now I'm going to create this new class. So he suggests using myApplication for the name. And let's click, let's see, superclass is called application. So we will extend that and click OK. There you go. So here's our first line. It says, my application extends the application. So now we can put in regular properties like we normally do. So we have a private. In this case, it's my friends. Now let's create some constructors, or not constructors, but getters and setters. So we'll generate the getter and setter. Let's return back to the answer here. It says also in your manifest, you need to tell the computer that you have a class called myApplication. So let's go back into my manifest. So the manifests, remember, are found up here in the first folder under app. So inside of application, we're going to put in a new line. It's called name. So type in name and select the first item. And it says, hey, do you want to use my application for a name? I sure do. So let's save that. So now, in my activity, or my main activity, I'm not going to create a new list of friends. I'm going to get something from another place. So let's go down and choose his activity get and set. How do you get to this thing? So let's do about getting. I'm going to copy this example and modify it. So copy and bring it back into here. So let's see, I'll take that part. My application dot this application and get some variable. Let's see if we have a different getter. We have a get my friends. There they are. And so now I am pulling the actual data source from this application class. All right, so everything else hopefully works fine. Let's go ahead and run this again. And now we have a solution for our global variables. Oh, it didn't work. It crashed. So what did I miss here? So it says that we have a problem on here. It says we have a null reference object on getFriendsList. So even though I have this global variable, I still wasn't very smart. When I create my my friends list, I left them as null. So we're going to have this as a new friends list or new my friends. There we go. Just for my own organization, I prefer to have the properties of a class listed first. So let's create this with an initialization and run it again. Okay, well at least the application didn't crash this time. Let's see what happens when I add somebody. So we're going to add Aaron and see what happens to Aaron. Aaron is added to the lists. Now we're going to add Bob. Bob is also added to the list, and Aaron and Bob are both here. Yay! So it looks like our persistency is working now. Hi, welcome back to another video here on PeopleList. In this tutorial for Android, we're going to add some sorting capabilities to our app. Right now we can add a person, but you can see that Aaron came in at person number 4. What I'd like to do is sort this. So if I clicked ABC, it would put Aaron at the top of the list. If I chose 1, 2, 3, it would put the youngest guy first, which it looks like would be Anselm. And so those are the sorting routines that we're going to do in this next video. So let's go into our code here and main activity. We have a button add, a button sort, and a button sort by age. So these two are going to have button listeners set to them. So I'm going down to the bottom of the screen here and I'm going to set some new button listeners for the other two buttons. So button sort by age. Let's do a set on click listener. So for each of these two new buttons, I'm going to create a set on click listener with a new on click listener function to go with it. So what I'm going to try is the collections.sort routine. So collections in sorting is supposed to be automatic in Java. You just tell that you want to sort a list and tell it which list you want to sort. So far so good, except when I hover over the final work, it says here, we've got something wrong with the person type parameter T. It should implement the comparable method in person. So if you could understand all that, congratulations. What it means is I forgot to tell the class how to sort people. That's what it means. Let's go look inside person and see what's going on here. So when I created person a while ago, I said we were going to leave this section open for the compare to method. So not only do we have to do a compare to method, we have to tell that this class is implementing a new interface. So let's say implements up at the top, and I'm going to implement comparable. And you can see that it's expecting a data type in the brackets T. So I'm going to put in there the type of data that we're working with is person. All right, so this causes an error. Let's hover over and see what's going on. It says here you must implement the comparable interface with the method called compare to. So that's what we're going to insert down here. Now, this should give me the ability to add a light bulb pop-up here somewhere. So let's see if we can get that. Doesn't always show up. There it is. So I click here, and then I click on the light bulb, and implement methods, and compare to, and click OK. So here at the bottom, it put in the new method. So I'm going to cut that out and paste it up underneath my comments. So there we have it. So we're going to compare to. Now, it doesn't actually work yet. We have to tell it how we compare this person to O. And so just to make sure that we're clear, other is the parameter that we're expecting. So we're going to return a comparison between the names of these two objects. So I'm going to say return this dot name and compare that to other dot name. And there it is. So now when we compare two, we're going to get a positive number if the first one is bigger, the negative number if the second one's bigger. I forget which way that works. And then if they're equal to each other, this function will return a 0. So it's returning an integer value based on the comparison of their names. Let's go back into main activity. Well, there it is. The error has gone away. So collections.sort now works. Now let's go and update the adapters. So we say adapter, and we say that the data has now changed. It's been sorted. Let's see if we can run that and get any good results. Okay, it looks like the application's running. We're going to try to sneak in somebody in between here. So somebody with the letter B for their first name. So let's put in here Bart. Bart is age 72 and he is using picture 9. Click OK. So Bart shows up in my list. He's at the bottom of the list. Now if I try to sort, something's not right here. It should have sorted the list. What happens if I click 1, 2, 3? That one works. Oh, I've actually made a mistake here. Look on my code here. I have sort age set up and sort ABC set up in a different way. So I must have reversed these buttons because the 1, 2, 3 is sorting, but age is not. So these two obviously buttons are reversed. Let's take a look here at what I coded. So sort age is what I set the onClick listener to, and then I created the sort method inside of it. So let's cut this out here and move it down to the other routine. So this will actually sort it by ABC, and this one will be sorting by age. So I'm going to save that, refresh the app, and see if that helps. Okay, let's try it again. I'm going to add a new person. Let's put in Aaron this time. So he's probably at the top of the list. Aaron is 14 and he is using picture 9. And here we go with Aaron. So Aaron's at the bottom. I click ABC and Aaron is now first. Now the 1, 2, 3 button no longer does anything. So let's fix that next. Okay, so the next goal is to enable the other button, the age sort, to work properly. So we've already used up the collection sort routine with the comparable on my friends. So how do I sort now with another field? Well, there are various ways to do it, and I'm going to show you one way. Okay, so this is perhaps the quickest way to understand. So I'm going to do collections.sort, and I want to do the same thing. So get my friends list, and then instead of just telling it to sort, I'm going to put in a comma. So then the other option is I can put in a new comparator object here. So a comparator object will compare two different objects again. So instead of using the default sort like we did with name, this says I'm going to compare two persons. So here's person is object 1, let's call him P1, and the other is object 2, which I will rename as P2. So how are we going to compare these two? Well, I want to sort by age. So let's take P1 and get his age. Now when you're comparing integers, you can just choose a subtraction. So we'll take integer 1, subtract the integer 2, and then we'll return that. So this will be a sort by age. Then we have to tell it to update the adapter. So let's do notify the adapter that the data set has changed, and let's see if it works. Let's run it again, and this should be able to sort by age. So here we go. We got the application running. Let's add somebody else. So let's add Aaron this time. Aaron is age 7 and he uses picture 9. Let's click OK. So Aaron is at the bottom. Let's do an ABC sort. So Aaron's at the top. Let's also sort by numbers. So the oldest guy on the list, it looks like they might be already sorted by numbers. Hi, in this video we're going to take you to an edit process. So you can see on the screen I have the application running. Let's see if I check Beatrice. If I click Beatrice and let's change her name. Instead of 49, let's make her 4,999 and click OK. And you can see that her name has been updated, or age has been updated. Also, she's been placed at the end of the list, and so we can resort. So we're going to have the edit options available at the end of this video. And there's some issues that we're going to have to work through along the way, so stay with me. So the first thing I have to do is create a click listener that will respond to when a person clicks one item in the list. So let's scroll down the page and let's put in a click listener for listening to a list. So our list is called list view friends lists dot. We do the same idea where we do set on, and we have a slight difference though. It's called set on item click listener. And then we need a new on click listener again. So that would be, what is that? On item click listener. Comes from adapter view. So this will work the same way as a button click, with one exception. We have a position item listed here. So it tells us which item in the list was clicked. That's very handy. So to keep my code a little bit sane, I'm going to create a new function in another place in the program. Let's call it edit person. All right, so here's the job of edit person. We're going to take the person object, send it to the form, and then display the changes back here in our main screen. How easy could that be? Well, let's find out. The first thing we have to do is create an intent. So I'll name it I. It's going to get the application context, so it knows that where the intent came from, and then the specific form name that we're going to open, which is newpersonform.class. So the second thing is I want to send some extra data to this new form. So let's get the contents of the person that was clicked at position. So we'll capture the person called P, and he will come from my friends list, and we will get him from the position that was clicked. Next, I want to put in all of the properties of the person into the intent. So remember, I.putExtra is the way to send a message to the input form. Finally, let's start the activity with start activity sub I. So you're going to notice that this will launch the activity. It should work. However, it won't fill in the data here into the form yet until we add some listeners on the other end. Let's scroll up the page and see how we listen to events from other forms. So you recall that we used this type of code right here called a bundle of get intent. So let's use this as our example here in the other form. So here's the new person form. We have ourselves a button listener for the OK, but we don't have any listeners yet for the intent. So the first item we'll create is called the bundle object, and we'll name it incoming intent. We'll get the intent, and then we'll get the extras. So we want to get the three variables that come from the incoming intent. So the three variables we sent were name, age, and picture number. So we will use the getString item to get the name. We will use getInt to capture the age, as also getInt for the picture number. So the next step is to actually fill in the edit form for us. So edit text name is set text for name. Edit text age is set text on age, and picture number with picture number. This will cause a problem though, because age and pictures are not strings, they're integers. So we have to do some extra work in here, otherwise our program will crash. So I'm going to go back into the inside of the parentheses and insert the toString method. So we're going to convert age to a string and picture number to a string. All right, so you might think we're done. Let's see if it works. All right, so far so good. Let's click on somebody like Beatrice. And sure enough, it filled in the form for us. So Beatrice, and let's see, I'm going to make her age 300 and click OK. Oh my goodness, what happened? We have Beatrice at 300, that worked, but we still have Beatrice at 30. So what's going on here? We created a new clone, a very old clone. So the reason this didn't work out so well is because every time we accept an input from the new user form, the computer right now is assuming that it's a new user and not an edited user. And so it created Beatrice twice. Let's do the same thing with Anselm just to prove that it works. So Anselm is now age 1. And he is now in the list as the last guy. So he's number 1. So instead of adding a new version of Anselm, we want to just update the existing one or remove the existing one and replace him one way or the other. So let's go back and look at main activity and see if we can fix that problem. So where did we do the incoming messages? Looks like it was right here. So if we had another field to alert us to see if this was an edited item or a new item, that would certainly be helpful. So let's go down and insert a new item. So here in Put Extra, in the Edit Person, I'm going to put an extra thing called Edited. And I'm going to give it the number, so P. So let's send it the position. That will let us know that the position was clicked from the user here. So we're going to have to capture a position number on the other end. So let's go over to here to New User Form, and we'll capture that. The first thing I should do is probably create a variable to capture that position. So let's make a position to edit, how about we'll call it. And I'm going to set that by default to be a -1. So a -1 means that this is not an edited person, it should be just a new person. However, down here in the Fill in the Form section, we've got ourselves the opportunity to capture this new thing. So position to edit is going to be equal to the incoming text.getInt, and we'll put in the word edit. So that will let me know that position to edit has been coming from one of the items clicked on the other application window. All right, so now when we send back the information, we should also send back the item called position to edit. Okay, we're getting closer. So back into my activity, let's go and see the part where we listen for incoming messages again. So if we get an incoming message, we should be able to handle it in one of two ways. If the edited number is above 0, that means it was an edited item and should be updated. If it was a -1, a position -1, then it means it's a new person. So I'm going to add a new integer string or integer variable here, and it's going to be called position edited. It will get the int value from the edit tag. So then in the section where I'm going to update the list, I'm going to check if the position edited was a positive number, means it's greater than -1, then I'm going to remove the existing person so that way when we add the new person, it will not have a duplicate. So let's see if that works any better. Okay, so I got the app running again. Let's try Beatrice. We're going to make her age is 509. And now Beatrice is 509, and you notice she shows up at the end of the list. So her original record was removed, and a new one was replaced. Let's try it again. There she goes. So now if we can sort by her age, she shows up last. If we sort by name, she shows up second. Okay, so it looks like we've got ourselves a way to also edit our tools, and we can use the same form for two different purposes.